Well, welcome one and all to the first of many monthly roundtable discussions around topics that are critical to success in the field of customer experience management. Our sessions are going to follow the colors on the bottom of the screen that reflect the different core competencies in CX, including the customer-centric organization, understanding the customer and employee, experience design, employee engagement, and the employee experience and engagement, continuous and data analytics and continuous improvement, and diversity, equity, and inclusion. I'm really happy, if you want to go to the next slide, Alistair, I'm really happy to welcome people literally from across the country, including the West Coast today at this early hour, and the next slide, please, from around the world. So our hopes are over the coming months that we continue to grow the representation both across the US and across the world. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Tom DeWitt. I'm the director of CXM at MSU and the academic program director for the master's degree in customer experience management, which is delivered fully online, part-time to working professionals like yourself. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Alistair Meffin, who joins us from Definitive Healthcare. He is our roundtable facilitator. Welcome, Alistair. If you could share the next slide and explain to our participants what we're going to be doing today.
Yeah. So thank you, Tom. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Alistair Meffin. I'm the Vice President of Customer Experience at Definitive Healthcare. We are a Boston-based company, and that's where I reside. So thank you all for joining. We have been working hard to put these roundtables on the calendar, and we're very happy to have our first one here today. So the idea here is really collaboration. For those of you that have participated in the master's program, this is a key component to that program. I've met some of you in those classes and understand how important this is. So we're going to start off. We will have our speaker go through a lightning round, if you will, on the topic at hand. We're then going to break you out into rooms where you will discuss the question that she will pose to you all at the end of her presentation. And then we'll actually have the ability to vote on what you all think are the best solutions. And then we'll bring it back to a group discussion to talk about sort of our top 3, 4 that we've identified given time constraints. I will say we will be staying on a little bit after the 12 o'clock hour for those of you who have some additional time or would like to ask our speaker some questions that you may not have gotten answered in the presentation. So with that, I'd like to welcome to the stage a TEDx speaker, a contributing author, trainer, and facilitator. She is the first Goldman Emotional Intelligence Coach in the UK. She's been an independent customer and employee experience consultant since 2010. I'd like everybody to welcome Sandra Thompson, who is going to lead our discussion today.
Thank you. So if I can take over control of the slides, let me start by sharing those. Let's get going. So I think probably 19 slides in 15 minutes. So let's see how we get on with that. Delighted to be here. Hope that you're all well. For the next slide, I'm going to invite you to type something into the chat, but on my count, 3, 2, 1, share it in the chat. So again, just to say, when you look at this next slide, please type into the chat whatever comes to mind, but only share it when I give you the sign, which is a countdown of 3, 2, 1. Okay, here we go. Type whatever you see. The first thing that comes to mind. The first thing that comes to mind. I'm seeing 3, 5, 7, 8 mentions in the chat, all looking good. Keep them coming, keep them coming. Forget about my countdown, no worries. So hopefully the point of this is to say that more than likely all of you have found something different, a different word to describe this. So when I looked at this, I thought of snorkeling. Any of you got snorkeling there? Not too sure. I'm not going to come out of this slide to make that point.
No.
The reason why we are all seeing different things is all to do with how we're wired, how we experience things, how our values are, what our belief systems are. And that's one of the key reasons why I want to invite you to think very clearly about what empathy is and what emotional intelligence is. The fact is that emotions ebb and flow. We could feel these entire sets of emotions within an hour. Now, I don't know about you, I'm definitely feeling like the one just second in from the right, feeling excitement and joy. Maybe you might feel that you might be the egg furthest on the right. I'm hoping you're not the one that's furthest on the left. But the fact is, we go through huge amounts of emotion every day, which is why I wonder, in the world of CX, we make these massive assumptions about happy. We want them to be delighted. These generic terms that we label in our customer journey maps, in our missions, in our outcome statements are not good enough, ladies and gentlemen. I'd like to say to you that the type of measurement that we take here isn't enough. And the fact is that quite some time ago, there was some work done that identified 16 different types of emotion. Now, I think personally that we need to think very carefully about what the neuroscientists say. If I said to you that our emotions are as unique as our fingerprint, I wonder what you would think. Now, I want to just spend a moment, a little bit longer, talking to you about this lady, because this is the crux of the matter. This is Lisa Feldman Barrett. She is a neuroscientist. She has been working tirelessly with her team to make the point that we often make assumptions about how emotions are made, but here's the truth, that she's based on MRI scans, on reading through, I'm sure her team did that, and hopefully some AI, thousands of reports. Our emotions are individual because they are shaped, number one, by our experiences and the meaning that we attach to those experiences. Number two, they're shaped by the context of the matter. And I'm going to tell you a very brief story that actually some of you on this call will remember from stories I've told before, which is she shows a picture on her TEDx of this face. It's a close-up of a face. The face looks like it's full of pain and anguish. There's definitely tears there. It's kind of grimacing. And when she pans out of the shot, you can see that it's Serena Williams holding the Wimbledon trophy. She has just won Wimbledon for the umpteenth time. And that facial expression is one of triumph and joy and disbelief and incredible, incredible love. If we don't get the context of the emotion right, we are making the wrong assumptions. And the final one I want to just cover off briefly, because this isn't a sociology lesson, is about our sociology. It's about our socialization. There it is. How we were brought up, the people around us, our parents, our teachers, our influential adults, all had an influence on our values and on our beliefs. So imagine that for a second. Every single one of us have a different meaning attached to an experience. I remember about 15 years ago, I went traveling around the world on my own, and some people were joyous. Oh, I've done that, it's amazing. Others like, are you nuts? Others are like, oh, okay, see how you get on. Because they all associated different meaning to experiences. And this point about socialization is critical, because what I might think is X, you will think is Y, which is why I showed you that desert island in the start. You all, hopefully I'll read the chat in a bit, saw something completely different. So every single one of us is completely different when it comes to emotions. And I do worry that when we use the skill of empathy, we are simplifying things far too much. There's no prizes for the answer to this question, but ultimately what I hear a great deal in customer experience is you should walk a mile in your customer's shoes. And I say, absolutely not. Because the fact is that you are not them. You will not actually have that moment of emotion at a particular point because you haven't had the socialization. You don't put the meaning into the experience, and you might not understand the context of the situation. Walking in your customer's shoes, sorry, is lazy. It's lazy. We need to put the effort into asking open questions and truly listening to the answer, because we know that it's not just the language that's used, it's the tonality of what is said, it's the words that are not said, it's the non-verbal expression, even if it's on the phone, it's sighing and other types of sounds. The chimp is an incredible character. And if you take one thing from this particular talk about the argument between empathy and emotional intelligence, I'm hoping that you'll take this. Many of you may have read this book, The Chimp Paradox. If you haven't, please put it on your reading list, either for your birthday or for Christmas, because it is a gripping read. The point here that I want to get across to you is that the limbic system, the emotional center, there are other emotional areas within the brain, but the limbic system is the eldest part. It's the thing that's responsible for fight, flight, or freeze. This bit can help us live. It can actually prevent us from being run over by a bus or something more serious, but it cannot define the difference between a horrible email from your boss or someone sending a text that you think the tonality is quite threatening. It cannot distinguish true threat. And in the world of customer experience, where our customer service colleagues, where the people on the front line are dealing with customers all of the time, not only are your customers in a state of berserk with chimps, we also have emotional contagion, which means our own staff are also being triggered. Now, the point here is that when the chimp goes berserk, the prefrontal cortex, the newer part of our brain, isn't able to function properly. Basically, the chimp is saying, I haven't got time for your lists and your pros and your cons. We're in dire straits. I've got to make a decision. So I'm knocking you out of the park and I'm going to actually act now. Which means that the prefrontal cortex, the executive center, the place of logic and decision making, isn't fully functional. Ladies and gentlemen, this is our brain. Every single one of us operate this way. And so if we've got all this stuff going on, if someone says something to us and we're trying to empathize, and yet our chimp is going berserk because it's triggered us for something, how on earth can we possibly be present? And when you think about it, think about the language that people use when they try and empathize. Oh yes, something similar happened to me. I know exactly how that feels. Yes, I imagine how that must have felt. Oh yes, that happened to my dad. There's nothing in there about the person. There's nothing in there to be in honor of what the person who you're talking to is honestly thinking. There's nothing in there that basically says, tell me with no judgment. There'll be no judgment on my side. You will feel very heard, very significant, and very valued. Emotion is a prediction of something. We, in our minds, our chemicals go all crazy because we expect something to happen. Now, if we don't even know what that thing is going to be, how on earth will the person speaking to me be able to understand what exactly is going on with me? Like I've said, emotions ebb and flow. And again, looking at these images, I quite fancy the one that's right in the middle, because for me, that's whitewater rafting and that's hilarious. But other people feel differently. So my invitation to you is to take a moment just to stop, a full stop, because then you have the ability just to feel and understand the emotions that are going on with you. You have the moment to recognize, to understand what might be happening and why, so that you bring your emotional state into a place of more consciousness, which is where this guy comes in, Daniel Goleman. He wasn't the inventor of the term emotional intelligence, but he certainly popularized it with his book, which made more sense and was quite controversial at the time, because he was basically implying that it could matter more than IQ at a time when everyone was doing Mensa tests. The fact is, emotional intelligence is your ability to recognize and understand emotion in yourself and others. It's your ability to manage your behavior and also to influence others. Point I'm trying to get across to you is that only with emotional intelligence will you truly connect with your colleagues and your customers. I'm not saying that it's that, empathy doesn't have a place somewhere, but I am saying that emotional intelligence is the answer. Here it is. Here is empathy, but actually it's on stage 3. It's only when you've mastered self-awareness that you will actually get to a point of knowing exactly how to use empathy, because you've got to know how you're feeling before you are present and ready for others. Many of you will have read great stuff from Carol Dweck. You may have seen her talks on growth mindset. Now, I fundamentally believe that people with fixed mindset can practice empathy. But I do think that people with a growth mindset who have the skill of emotional intelligence are far better at it, because they are curious. They don't find the lazy way of saying, oh yeah, I know how you feel, or yeah, that happened to me, or yeah, that happened to my dad. Doesn't work. And to have a growth mindset, you've got to be a catalyst. You've got to be able to be fluid and flexible to what is presented to you in that moment. You've got to trust that you are present, and you've got to let go of those thoughts that are coming into your mind. You need to be an explorer with the person who's in front of you. You need to be courageous, and you need to be present. In a moment, you'll be put into breakout groups. And my invitation to you is to find 3 strategies for dialing up emotional intelligence and dialing down empathy. There endeth the lesson.
I was looking for my mute button, couldn't find it. Thank you, Sandra. So we're gonna take a minute. We've got 30 participants, 30 participants. So Tom, let's go ahead and get 7 rooms set up.
Tell you what, Alistair, I find groups of 3 work better.
Perfect. Then
More
10 rooms.
productive. So I'll do that. I'm going to drop in the chat. I am dropping in the chat a link to Mural. So
Nope,
you're going to
Janny,
be
Janny
using.
beat you to it.
Oh, Janny, awesome. So Janny has shared a link to Mural. I need you to click on that, and if you don't already have a Mural account, you'll need to quickly create one. So if you could do that and let us know any problems you have so that Janny could fix it if you're having a problem. Okay. All right. In you go. We'll see you in 15.
Great. Well, great. think we've got everybody back in the room. So thanks everybody for going through. So now what we're going to do is, now that you've all put up these great ideas around how great strategies on how to address this, we're actually going to give you the opportunity to vote on your top 3 choices. And so we will get that going, and should take about 3 or 4 minutes, and each of you can vote, and then we'll bring it back.
All right. So there's our top vote getters. Can you guys see it all right?
Yeah.
All right.
Good.
All right. We got different ones from across. That's good. All right, so why don't we start with our first one on invest in mindfulness for employees so they are confident in themselves. Which room was this? Who's your spokesperson? And just talk to us about what this means to you.
So this would be, my name's Lisa Hazard. I'm from Waste Away in Northern Indiana, and we are a trash and recycling company. One of the things that we are doing is creating a Zen room that our customer service reps can go into for a peaceful break after a tough call, because we all know that in customer service, sometimes people can be not so nice, and that can weigh on you mentally. And we want to promote a good mental health here. So that way our employees are staying healthy, as well as being prepared for the next set of customer interactions that they'll have later in the day.
That's a great example, because what we know about the nervous system is that if you give yourself silence, ideally, but quiet for sure, is that it does take steps to restore your nervous system after an incident. So that sounds amazing. Thank you very much.
Welcome. Thank you.
Any other thoughts from the group on ways that they're, like a Zen room that they're doing for their employees? Okay. All right, so moving on to the next one, understanding what motivates our customers instead of assuming. Be user-centered. This is near and dear to my heart. So love to hear which room this came from.
I think this came from our room, and Jason, I believe this originally started with Jason mentioning Christensen's framework for jobs to be done, and thinking about truly why a customer is hiring your company or your product or your service, and what job are they hiring you to complete for them, and really focusing on pains they're looking to alleviate, gains they're looking to have, or just the true reason for their bringing you on board. We also mentioned the 5 whys as another way of kind of getting to the true motivations of a customer, and really focusing on that customer or the user or whoever it is, and their true reasons and motivations for engaging with your product or your service.
Yeah, 100%. This has become the pinnacle for companies right now, right? With the macroeconomics, there's been a major shift in terms of how do you show value to your customers. In a lot of tech companies, you're able to do this through usage and identifying, additional use cases, if you will, and then getting your customers into those different pieces of your product. But now that these decisions are making their way up to the C-suite and CFOs specifically, really having those outcomes and impact documented and something that you can show to them is very, very important. So I really like this one. This is one of the two major pillars for my team for this year. The other one being engagement. So fits all into Sandra's presentation. So thank you for that, Scott. All right, focus on understanding people. Don't just listen, but truly hear them. Who had this one?
That was group 7. And yeah, it was really about, listening to Sandra. It seemed that it was kind of, we wanted to shift from the inside out approach to the outside in, right? Since empathy is really focused on just me, myself, and I, and we want to focus outside instead, right? Instead of focusing on what we understand. Now, to me, we wanted really to focus on truly understanding people, not just listening what they have to say, but hearing the message behind it. And not just a customer and not just a user, but people in general, really taking away that professional classification that we try to put on everything, and really bring it to a macro level as we look at human beings for what they are, these complicated creatures that have all of this complexity and emotion behind them that only can be understood by another complex emotional creature. So yeah.
There are a couple of things I just want to add to that. So thank you for that. Being present and listening doesn't mean to say that you can't check in. So there are ways that you can check in with the person. You can say, it seems to me as if, or if I'm understanding correctly, is this right? Which shows that you're attempting to understand, and you're also inviting that person to tell you more or to correct you on where you're going with reciprocating that communication. So I think, thank you for that. I think that was Mike. So yeah, all good.
Great. All right. And last one on the 5-vote line, know our own emotions before trying to understand others. This is a good one.
Well, I'll speak up. That was my team. I don't remember which of the 4 of us, it wasn't me who shared that, but really understanding yourself first, right? Where you, what is the quicksand you're currently standing on or solid ground, and understand where you're at so that you can kind of clear some of that clutter to be able to truly hear and understand the other.
Yeah, this is one that early in my career I had to really work on. And I actually had a boss, he made me write down a sticky note. It's in my notebook, and it literally says, sit back. And so, he recognized in me what triggers and what I show off when I'm starting to pounce, if you will, into a conversation. And it got to the point where he got fed up with reminding me and would start kicking me under the table in meetings. So I have learned that to sit back. But I think understanding yourself and understanding the signals that you have is hugely important, because if you don't know them, you can't truly be present and actually listen to the person that's there. So this is a really great one. All right. Well, we still have a few minutes left, so I want to make sure that we hit on a few others. Sandra, is there anyone in particular that you think you'd like to hit on?
I would like to just make a few comments, actually. Whoever wrote embrace silence is on it, because quite honestly, when you give people space, you allow them to think and to enter into that space if they want to. Now, people often will fill the space because they feel uncomfortable themselves, or they'll naturally think, oh, right then, don't like silence, better say something. No, not the case. Now, one thing I would say is that if you perceive that the person might feel uncomfortable with it, just say before you start a conversation, if there's nothing to say, we're just going to be quiet, if that's all right with you. So at least they don't then step in with something and they feel obliged. The point about open-ended questions is utterly important, because that's where the exploration happens. And I think that the more practice you put into open-ended questions, the more you're likely to get to a point where this person feels significant and valued and wants to be able to give you the opportunity to relate to them. And the final one I want to just pick out for a moment is whoever wrote, allow yourself to be vulnerable and give grace to others, knowing that we receive and interpret feedback differently as individuals. Just keep in mind the visualization of the thumbprint, if you may, because ultimately all of us, as I've said, have a very different way of being wired. It isn't right or it isn't wrong, it just is. And the curiosity you have in whatever is said or expressed will really pay dividends with both your colleagues and your customers.
Great. There's one further down that really resonated. Adopt a culture of servant leadership. I think as someone who has a pretty large team, it's really important for them to understand that I'm here for them, and that we as leaders are here for them. I was speaking with a colleague at a conference, and he said, we are no longer in the customer success business as leaders. We are now in the employee success business. And I take that to heart, right? Ultimately, my job, yes, is to help the business succeed, but it's really for my employees to succeed in their careers, just like I had my own mentors. So, really important as you start to think about emotional intelligence, how do you apply that to your team and helping them succeed in their career journey? So huge one.
The only thing I would like to add to that is if you've read Simon Sinek's Leaders Eat Last, that's a great resource to get to grips with the position that managers and leaders should be in order for the development of the relationship within the organization and getting to a point where people will love you for what you do and they'll feel supported and held at work.
Absolutely. Well, all right. Well, thank you everyone for joining. This was our first of many. So we are looking forward to our next roundtable that's going to be happening on June 20th at this same time. We have two great speakers coming, and let me share my screen. Let me get rid of that. Share. All right. Caroline and Jack from Tribe CX. They're going to be talking about vulnerable customers and how do we address that, right? And this can be in many forms. We know that again, with the macroeconomics, that we have certainly seen a number of clients who certainly need our services, but unfortunately are unable to pay and things of that nature. So I think this will be a great topic next month, and we look forward to having you all join. So thanks, everybody.